And welcome back. Well, today I have on Dr. Charles Stacey, and he is the president and CEO of Accera Incorporated. Now, Accera is a clinical stage pharmaceutical company, and Dr. Stacey has over 15 years of experience in healthcare, working as a healthcare provider, executive entrepreneur, and investor. And prior to joining Accera, he was with a global healthcare venture capital and private equity group. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here, and we were talking a little beforehand about Denver, where this gentleman now resides, right outside of Denver near Boulder, and I used to visit there frequently. It's a very beautiful, beautiful area. So Dr. Stacey, what is a clinical stage pharmaceutical company?
So, as you say, we're a pharmaceutical company, so we're involved in the development of new drugs. Mm-hmm. Our lead drug compound is in Alzheimer's disease, so we're developing a new drug for Alzheimer's disease. And what a clinical stage pharmaceutical company is, drug development is a long process.
Yes.
On average, it takes about 10 years. It costs about $1 billion to do that. But there are different stages within the development process. There's the preclinical stages, which are before humans, and then there's phase 1, phase 2, and the last stage, which is phase 3. And we're in that last stage. So we're in phase 3. We're currently running a phase 3 trial for the final, to show our drug is effective in treating Alzheimer's disease.
Well, we know how important that is to a community such as this, and we know how devastating Alzheimer's can be, and it's been looked at for many, many years, and it's good to see that companies such as Accera is doing these clinical trials. So why is it important for the people to get involved in these trials? I assume that's what you're looking for, people in this community as well as others.
Yeah. Well, as you well know, and as you say, Alzheimer's is a terrible disease. It's the 6th leading cause of death in the U.S. 5.4 million people affected, not to mention the hundreds and thousands of caregivers affected. And more so than any other disease, I think there is a real need for new drugs in this space. The statistics are quite staggering that there have been no new drugs approved for the last 12 years in this disease. So the patients that have this terrible condition are very dependent upon the 2 drugs that are approved, and there's very little hope for new treatments. So that's why, in doing what we're doing at the moment, we are encouraging patients to get involved in clinical trials to forward the science, but also to develop the next generation of drugs for this space.
And how is this investigational drug different from ones that are currently available and other types of things that have been looked at over the years?
Yeah. So there are two main compound types that are available at the moment for patients with Alzheimer's disease, and they really address the balance of chemicals in the brain. 2 particular chemicals, one's called acetylcholine and the other's called glutamate, and then they really address the symptoms of the disease. So the new drugs that are in development, there's a few different ways that they tackle Alzheimer's disease. There are, you may have heard of the sticky proteins that exist in the brain, amyloid and tau. Yeah. So there are drugs being developed that address those. But unfortunately, there have been a number of quite high-profile failures in this space, and you would have heard previously that, over the last 10 years, all the drugs that have been developed in phase 2 and phase 3, the later stage of development, have failed. And that's really because they've addressed those two main causes of the disease, the sticky proteins in the brain. So our compound addresses a different hypothesis and a different mechanism within Alzheimer's disease, and that's that the brain within Alzheimer's disease is known not to use sugar in the normal way.
Yeah,
so the brain, as you know, is a very metabolic organ. It uses a lot of sugar. It uses about 25% of sugar, which is the main fuel of the body. And it's known that in Alzheimer's disease, the brain, for some reason, doesn't use that sugar in the usual way. So what we do is, when the brain or the body doesn't have sugar, it uses an alternative fuel. It uses a different fuel called ketone bodies. So what we do is we provide Alzheimer's patients with this other fuel. So their brains are not using sugar in the normal way, so we give them these ketone bodies, and these ketone bodies restore the metabolism, restore the function of the brain, and hopefully restore the cognition and the memory problems that go with Alzheimer's disease.
That's interesting when you speak of not using sugar in the same way. Obviously, another disease we hear that is diabetes.
Yeah,
Do you
absolutely.
see a correlation between
so,
those two?
No, exactly, and I think increasingly the medical community is understanding this better. Alzheimer's disease, one of the problems with Alzheimer's disease is for many years still to this day, it's not really understood fully, but we know that this metabolic defect is part and parcel of the disease. In some way it's related. And now Alzheimer's disease is by some groups being called, type 3 diabetes. That is, in fact, this lack of, correct utilization of sugar by the brain that's causing this progression into Alzheimer's and the problems with memory that we see and the problems with function that we see.
Very interesting. Looking at your bio here, I see that you did your undergraduate degree in research in neurosciences at the University College in London. So, curious question. Over there in the United Kingdom,
Sure.
maybe other parts of the world, are you seeing this prevalence of Alzheimer's disease as much as you're seeing it here,
Sure.
or is it just that it's being discovered better?
Yeah, I think it's two things really. I mean, the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease is age. So the majority of patients that get Alzheimer's are 65 and over. And therefore, as we have globally an increasingly older population, the incidence of Alzheimer's disease is increasing. So it's 5.4 million patients in the US, it's 3 million globally, and increasing. So in the UK, we see an equal amount of Alzheimer's disease, and of course, patients are affected by the same challenges they are faced by here. The inability, the lack of new treatments, and the gradual progression of the disease and the impact it has on families and carers.
Very interesting. What about, I've heard about the Nourish Ad clinical research study. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so this is our phase 3 study that we're currently running. It's being run across the whole of the US. It's being run in 90 clinical trial sites. These sites are run by some of the best neurologists and physicians in the space. The clinical trial is testing our investigational drug. It tests the clinical trial is the treatment period is 6 months. So patients who are between the ages of 66 and 90 years old are eligible to join our clinical trial. They are either, for the first 6 months, they're either put onto the placebo group, which is the faux drug or the investigational drug itself. And after 6 months, they're put onto the active product for what we call the open label phase. So they have 6 months at the end where they are on the investigational product itself. And during that period of time, they go through a number of visits with the physician where they undergo cognitive testing to see if they are responding to the treatment that we're putting them on.
And I want to emphasize that according to the information that I got, this is for folks who have mild to moderate memory problems. If somebody's in the very advanced stage of Alzheimer's, are they being tested too in a different way? Or at that point?
Sure. So not for this particular clinical trial, not for our clinical trial. There are clinical trials out there that address different stages. There are those that assess, are available to those that are earlier in the disease course and also later in the disease course. But for this particular trial, the Nourish AD trial, then it's really just for mild to moderate patients.
Okay, and I want to give the way that you can find out more about this. It's ad-study.com, so the letter A, the letter D-study.com, or the number is 866-405-9998 to find out if you qualify. And I do want to mention that although most people in this community have some sort of health insurance, it's not required, right?
No, exactly right. And this is, a lot of the reason we get a lot of interest in these clinical trials is a great way to access, some of the top physicians in the space. Yeah. But also to have, a really rigorous clinical testing and undergo, a sort of a very detailed investigation of your disease. Yeah. Exactly right. And as you said, it doesn't cost anything. In fact, you're compensated for your time and travel, and the clinical trial sites can arrange all of that for the patients. Well,
Doctor, it is great to see a company such as Accera is getting involved in this disease. I think any way you can look at this more proactively, differently, is going to end up benefiting many, many people. I want to thank you for coming on today. It's been a pleasure meeting you. And again, I want to give you the website is ad-study.com, very easy. Or the number is 866-405-9998 9998. By the way, on the website, you can complete the questionnaire right there, or you can call as well to see if you qualify. And once again, thank you. Nice to meet you, and happy to have you here.
Thanks very much.
We'll be right back.